Hello there and welcome back to my studio. I am Nesli and today we are going to be making a front tie vest. I know it has been done many times before and you have seen it all over the internet, all over Pinterest, all over Instagram, but I wanted to make my own pattern as well. And I think it turned out to be a super cute one. It has 10 sizes, so it's very inclusive and I love wearing it. And if you want to sew along with me and have a little cute front tie vest, come on in then. Let's sew it together. And I want to address a couple of points before we are moving on to the sewing part of this video. First being is the vest you are seeing on Pinterest are usually quilted. So I will not be making a quilted vest today because I have a fabric and it is self-quilted one. Like it has little cute flower shapes on it, but it has no wadding, no batting behind it. I really don't know how they managed to do this fabric, but they did that and I will be using this one, so I will not quilt my fabric. But if you want yours quilted, you can totally do that. And if you want to see how to quilt your fabric, you can check out my bag videos. At the beginning of those videos, I am explaining how to make your fabric a quilted one. As a lining fabric, I am using this green, almost the same color linen fabric, and it has crinkle texture to it. I know they are not the same colors, but I love this little nuanced harmony between them. Also, I have another tone of green as my bias binding. In this project, I will be needing the bias binding because, let me show you, the vest has bias binding all around the armholes and also all around the vest itself. And for the front ties, I used bias binding as well. And as a bias binding, I am using pre-made bias binding. When you fold it all the way after sewing, you will have 1 centimeter wide bias binding, and when you unfold it like this, it will be 4 centimeter wide. I am using pre-made bias binding, like I said, but if you want to make your own bias binding with your lining fabric or maybe your shell fabric, you can totally do that. And if you don't know how to do your bias binding, you can check out my French beret video, previous video before this one. And at the beginning of that video, I am explaining step by step how to make your own continuous bias binding. So now we have 3 different green tones as our textile necessities for this project. And it's like I'm hearing you are asking, what's the second point? What's the second point? What's the second? And the second point that I want to mention, I decided to change the way I am talking in front of the camera, because before I was preparing this text scripts that I felt I needed to follow dot by dot and word by word, because I was so nervous to talk in a language that is not my mother language in front of a lifeless and mimicless camera, and I felt like I didn't know what to say. And I still feel like that. So this year I decided to overcome this fear of mine and making myself a little bit better, one video at a time. That's why I am more open, more like myself. And this way I feel like I can show my personality a little bit more, and that is what I want to do in this channel. Not to feel like a robot, not to feel like a teacher, but more of a sewing friend. So if I make any mistakes in a language way, in a grammatical way, bear with me. I promise you I will get better. And with that out of my chest, I can talk about the vest a little bit more. This vest is very easy to do. Connecting the front, back, shoulders is no-brainer. It's a child's play. Maybe attaching the bias tape all around the vest is taking the most of the time while making this vest. But that step is also very easy. So don't be scared. Take your time. Do it slowly, but do it beautifully. In the end, you will have a really cute, really beautiful vest that you can wear it all the time, that you can layer it with your t-shirts, with your sweatshirts, with your, pullovers. Depending on your fabric choice, you can use it during the winter times. You can use it even in the summer times. It is so versatile that you will not take it off whole year. So I feel like I mentioned everything I need to mention. Then let's get started. So I've already cut out all my pattern pieces, and you can find all the fabric requirements and cutting details in the sewing instructions manual. On the front piece, there are 2 notches along the center front line. One here and one here. Later on, we'll be placing our ties or ribbons right at these points. Now, I'm placing the back piece in front of me with the right side facing up. Then, I take one of the front pieces and lay it on top, right sides together. Make sure the side seams are nicely aligned as you position both pieces. I'm pinning along the side seam in a few places to keep the layers secure. And now I'm sewing both side seams with a 1 cm seam allowance, which is already included in the pattern. Now, I'm pressing the seam allowances open to both sides. Pressing makes your seams look much cleaner, so don't skip this step. Taking a moment to press your seams not only flattens the fabric, but also gives your garment a crisp, professional finish. Totally worth the extra effort. I'm turning the vest over and folding both front pieces onto the back piece, right sides touching. I carefully bring the shoulder seams together, pin them in a few spots by making sure edges are aligned, and sew both shoulders with a 1 cm seam allowance. I press open the seam allowances on both shoulders to keep everything neat and smooth. The fabric frays a little, so I trim the loose threads to keep it neat. Now that the first vest made from the main fabric is finished, I'm folding it and setting it aside for now. Next up, we are going to sew the vest using the lining fabric. We follow the exact same steps to make a second vest identical to the first one. Since this fabric looks the same on both sides, I'm going to do a little trick to help you follow along more easily on camera. I'll take a small piece of masking tape, stick it to the wrong side of the fabric and write back on it, just so there is no confusion as we go. I am doing the same for the front pieces too. So again, place the back lining piece right side up. Lay one front lining piece on top, right sides together. Align the side seam and pin in a few places. Also align the shoulder seams and pin them down as well. Sew all the edges with a 1 cm seam allowance. I'm pressing all the seam allowances open to both sides again. You'll remember there were 2 notches on each front piece, right at the center front. If you transferred those while cutting, you should have now 4 notches in total, 2 on each side.
That's where we'll attach our ties later. Alright, both of our vests are ready, one from the main fabric and one from the lining. Now I lay the main fabric vest flat in front of me, fully opened, wrong side up. Take the lining vest and place it inside, so they are sitting wrong sides together. First, I'm matching the notches at the center front to align the two layers properly. When matching the seam lines, stack them directly on top of each other. Insert a pin from one side and make sure it comes out exactly at the seam line on the other layer. Then push the pin back through so it comes out from where you started. This way you can be sure they're perfectly aligned. Repeat this on both ends of every seam line to keep everything nice and even. Then I'm pinning the two layers together all the way around the edge. Make sure all the edges and seams are nicely aligned. Now let's sew along the entire circumference, like 4 or 5 mm from the edge to join the two layers. Do the same for the armholes as well. Sew all the way around to join both layers. Now I remove the pins and here's what it looks like once it's done.
Ta-da! The vest is almost complete. Now we have to move on to the bicep side of the things. And we are going to create 4 ribbons with bicep for the either side of the front piece. So we are going to be attaching here and here. And in total there will be 4 ribbons like this. And then all the way around and the armholes, and then we're done. And did I mention it is also reversible? And to be honest, I will not be wearing this particular vest like this because this fabric is way too cute to be worn like this. So, but if you use 2 cute and beautiful fabrics on either side of the vest, you can reverse it, wear it, and then reverse it, wear that one, and you will have 2 vests in one vest.
I'm using bicep for the front ties. So first, I'm folding my bicep in half, making sure the raw edges are tucked neatly inside. Then I will sew it closed, keeping my stitch super close to the edge, about 1-2 mm from the edge. So by folding it like this, I'll end up with a ribbon that's 1 cm wide. I want to make 4 ties, each one 30 cm long, so I'm going to sew up about 1.2 meters of bicep in total. But honestly, this part is totally up to you and your style. Feel free to make yours shorter or longer. You can make some spaghetti straps out of your main fabric or go with grosgrain ribbon or any regular ribbon you like. And just like that, I have one long strip ready to go. I'm pressing it to make it more neat. Now I'm cutting it into 30 cm pieces, which I think is a nice balanced length for a cute front tie. But depending on the vibe you're going for, you might want something a bit different, and that's totally okay. Next, I'm placing the ribbons right at the center notches on each side of the center front. Transferring these notches while cutting the fabric is super important. They show you exactly where to place your ties. Without these markings, it's easy to misplace the ribbons or end up with uneven alignment at the center front. I center each ribbon right on the notch, pin it in place, and then sew a securing stitch about 4-5 mm from the edge. Our ties are almost ready. Now let me show you a little trick to keep the raw ends of your bias tape ribbons from fraying. Super simple but really effective. I'm lightly melting the ends with a lighter, then quickly pressing them with my fingers, which I have already dampened a bit. I actually saw some pro sewists doing this and thought it was genius, and I've been doing it ever since. But when working with fire, make sure to be extra careful. Safety first. Once I've sealed all 4 ends, I'm also adding tiny reinforcement stitches right at the tip of each one, just to make sure they stay nice and secure over time. Alright, now let's attach the bias binding. I'm placing the vest in front of me with the lining side facing up, and I'm choosing any seam line as my starting point. I'm leaving a little tail, about 4-5 cm, and I'm starting to pin the bias tape from that seam line. I'm aligning the raw edge of the bias tape with the raw edge of the fabric, making sure the right side of the tape is facing right side of the lining. Now I'm going all the way around the vest, pinning as I go. While I'm pinning, I'm gently stretching the bias tape just a bit to give it a slight tension, not letting it sit too loose but not pulling it too tight either. As I'm getting to the front tie areas, I'm making sure the ribbons underneath are laying flat and neat. Once I'm back where I started, I'm marking the spot on the bias tape where my first pin was sitting on the seam line, and then I'm taking the pin out. I'm doing the same on the other end, marking it right where it crosses the seam line. Now cut the bias tape and bring the 2 ends together, aligning where I marked. Then I'm sewing a straight stitch along the marked line so that the seam lines up perfectly with the vest side seam. After that, I'm trimming the excess and leaving about 1 cm seam allowance. I'm opening the seam allowance with my fingers and pinning the small gap closed. Now the right side of the binding is touching the lining and is fitting perfectly. Then I'm starting to sew all the way around the vest with a 1 cm seam allowance, starting from where the join is. Once I'm done sewing, this is how it looks. Now I'm flipping the bias tape over to cover the stitch line completely on the main fabric side. I'm folding it over to cover the seam allowance, and as I'm folding, I pin it in place and continue this all around the vest. I'm placing the pins about 2-3 mm from the folded edge, and I'm making sure the pins come out right at the seam line where the lining and bias tape meet on the back. This way I'm enclosing the raw edges and getting a nice clean finish. When I'm sewing along that pinned edge, the stitches will stay on the bias tape on the back side as well. Curved edges can be a bit tricky, but don't worry, just take your time here. As I'm folding the bias tape over the curve, I'm gently easing it around without stretching it too much. I'm placing the folds with my fingers and pinning frequently, especially around the tighter curves, to keep everything smooth. When I'm folding the bias tape over the front ties, I'm making sure the ties are laying flat underneath. I'm folding carefully around them so they stay in place and don't get caught in the stitching. And if my pins on the back aren't lining up exactly where I want them, I'm taking a moment to make small adjustments until everything looks just right. If you feel the tape isn't laying flat, you can slightly pull the outer edge and ease the inner edge in. This helps the bias tape hug the curve nicely and prevents puckering. I'm pinning all the way around the edge like this. And if I notice any bulkiness where the fabric is a bit too much for the bias tape to fully cover the stitch line, especially around the curved or layered areas, I'm carefully trimming the excess with my scissors. Just a teeny bit goes a long way to keep everything smooth and neat. Okay, so this part only took me about 2 million years to finish, but who's counting when it's looking this good? After carefully pinning everything in place, I'll sew all the way around the vest from the pinned side about 2-3 mm in from the open edge of the bias tape. I'm starting at the same seam line where I joined the bias tape ends. I'm guiding the edge of the bias tape along the inside of my presser foot and sewing all the way around just like this. As I go, I'm removing the pins one by one as they come up. Honestly, this step is definitely the most time-consuming part of making the vest and maybe the trickiest part of the whole project. It takes patience and care, but it's totally worth it. When sewing around the curved edges, I'm slowing down a little and being extra careful. These spots can get tricky, especially if the fabric wants to shift or bunch up. Just take your time, keep adjusting as needed, and don't rush it. Smooth, steady stitching will give you much cleaner finish in the end. Again, I'm making sure the ribbons are out of the way and not getting caught in the seam as I sew. Double checking before every curve and corner. Sewing all the way around the vest like this took me around 5 minutes, and it made all the difference in the final look. Now onto the armhole. Same steps apply. I'm starting at the side seam again with the lining side facing me, leaving a small tail. I'm pinning the bias tape around the armhole, aligning the raw edges right sides together. At the end, I'm marking the overlap points right on the seam line. I'm sewing the tapes and together, trimming the excess and pinning the seam open. Now I'm stitching all the way around with a 1 cm seam allowance. Flipping the tape over to the main fabric side, folding it neatly to cover the seam and pinning it in place. Placing the pins 2-3 mm from the edge, aiming for a clean finish. I'm sewing right along the edge of the tape, nice and steady. Finally, I'm pressing for a neat finish. And here's how it looks when it's all done. Now I'm gonna do the other armhole.
And with the last bias binding attached to the armhole, the vest is now completed. I think it turned out super cute. I love the fit of it. I love this fabric and I'm not going to take it off for like a month. And I adore this cute little front ties. And if you like, you can make it longer, you can make it shorter. If you want to add buttons and buttonholes or like snaps in front of the vest, you can also go ahead and do that. But I prefer it with front ties because it's more my style like this. And if you need a tutorial on that, please let me know in the comments so that I can make a video tutorial for that one as well. And thank you for joining me today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel for more sewing tutorials like this one. See you guys, bye!